Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Pep Talk. We are out of the studio today. We are out in the field. And with us, we have one of the, I'm going to say, elder statesmen of modern day ophthalmology and refractive surgery, Dan Durrie, who has been around even longer than I have, Dan. And we've known each other for decades. Dan is in Kansas City. He has his own practice, Durrie Vision, which is he is now passed off to the next generation, Jason Stahl, his son-in-law, and Erin, his daughter, and other physicians as well. But Dan and I, our relationship goes way back because we've had a common goal, and that is to expand the market for elective procedures. Dan's work goes back not just to the laser that's used in LASIK, but even prior to that with RK and radial keratotomy, and he was part of the original studies, the PERC study, which really kind of laid the foundation for what we have today, which with laser-based refractive surgery, both on the cornea as well as on the lens. So Dan, welcome, so great to see you.
Shareef, great to see you. And I couldn't be more excited about the future right now. And a lot of it has to do with this opportunity that we've been given to spend time with our staff, spend time with our families, and spend time with our patients on how could we be better than they ever were. It's such a crisis, and we certainly feel bad for all of the people that have suffered through this. But I think that ophthalmology is going to be better, and ophthalmology always leads in medicine. And I think it's really a great time for each of the practices to start thinking about how could they be better than they've ever been. Not just wearing masks and some social distancing that we're going to do, but how can we actually make a better culture for our staff and the patients in this new opportunity.
Yes, I agree, Dan. And of course, my heart goes out to families that have been affected by this. And of course, all of us are in the business of healthcare and have to see patients coming into our practices. And I agree with you. I think this is a chance to have a whole clean sheet of paper to say, what do we want the patient experience to be like? You and I have been talking about this for years, but now I think what COVID did is just brought it to the front of the line in terms of priorities of what doctors need to be thinking about.
Yeah, and I think, as you know, I was excited about the future. I did a 10-year kind of sale of Durrie Vision to my younger partners. Then I gradually, over 5 years, worked less and less and less, and I quit seeing patients and doing surgery in January. And I can pass that on to a little bit. People are looking at what is the career going to be long-term when I'm not seeing patients. Because I did it as a transition with great people to pass the practice off to and with great systems in place, it was not a hard transition at all. But I also didn't want to give up the kind of love of ophthalmology. And so what I'm doing now is I'm the chairman of a company called IOR Partners, which is helping people move cataract surgery from the ambulatory surgery center of the hospital to their office under a system that's already exists in every state, which is office-based surgery. As we all know, in dermatology and in oral surgery and plastic surgery, there's been office-based surgery in every state for years. Mm-hmm. But when we move the #1 procedure in medicine, which is cataract surgery, it's disruptive, and I like those things, and so I'm having a lot of fun. And as I'm working with practices now, it all comes down to not only are you going to be doing this surgery in your office instead of the ASC, how do you make it better? How do you make it better for the staff, better for your patients, better for you, so you enjoy the day even more? And that's just been a joy.
Well, you are, you and this IOR Partners, well, it's more than a project. You now are our chairman, and I'm really glad. I was really heartened to see when the two co-founders of that actually brought you on as a chairman to really help guide them, because I knew already your philosophy towards what really mattered in the environment and what you had been so successful in the last 10 years since I actually came out and visited you and saw how you had restructured the patient experience at Durrie Vision and really made it all about them. And, we had a conversation now 15 years ago about the need to move from the catch and release mindset, which is what dominated ophthalmology, to more of, let's call it, lifetime value of the patient and having them come back to you. So they might start with contact lenses, go into refractive surgery on the cornea, but ultimately go into lens-based procedures. And now you're helping bring the lens-based procedure into the office, just like LASIK has come into the office. So first of all, props to you, Dan. I think that's a noble thing, and I'm a fan and I'm a supporter, so that's really great. What have you learned so far? That the first, let's call it, cohort of practices that are moving into this office-based surgical realm. What are some kind of takeaways that you can share?
It's interesting. We have about 20 practices under contract right now, and what we're trying to do is kind of fine-tune everything with them. So every one of them is as you know, we always say in ophthalmology, if you've seen one ophthalmology practice, you've seen one ophthalmology practice. They're all totally different, but they all kind of are like joining a club, because they're kind of all the first people in their community to do office-based cataract surgery. So by getting together and joining as a club and sharing ideas around a common project, it's been really fun in that area. So what have we learned? The technical things is really easy for the surgeon. The staff has to learn things. We've got to work with insurance companies, a lot of things behind the scenes, which our company does. But for the surgeon, they kind of go, wow, this is really easy. I did my last case on Thursday in the ASC and my first case in the office on the next Tuesday. And gee, the patient smiled and the patient came through the same waiting room. So all of that is easy. The next phase, though, we're really looking at is practice growth, because they've made this change. If you just take the patients they've already done and just move in the office, that's one thing. But all these practices we're working with are really interested in growth, and especially growth in private pay. After a 15% cut, that all of a sudden people realize that the third-party reimbursement might not be all that good down the road, and what's the next cut coming? So that's where we're going. And I think I like words. The whole Words Matter program that I've been quoting for a long time. So what we've done is categorize some procedures we're already doing into lens-based refractive surgery. Mm-hmm. Okay, we have corneal-based refractive surgery and lens-based refractive surgery, but nothing new. But what we've done is, as we've introduced it to the staff, we've given them a new language and a new goal. Tell me about lens-based refractive surgery. What does that mean? What does it mean for our practice? What does it mean for the patients? And that includes ICL, which a lot of them haven't done before, which is a growing product that's coming. And then refractive lens exchange. And it's interesting, in these practices, they have all the skills and the knowledge, and they're doing some premium upgrades, but they're not doing private pay lens surgery. Right. So we kind of have a goal now of changing these practices, and it's a big one. It takes a lot of work, from waiting for cataracts to preventing cataracts.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. That's a big switch. And once the light bulb goes off, you mean I'm doing the exact same procedure. Yes. I'm doing the exact same lenses with the same focal machine and everything else, and doing it here in my office. But I can actually tell a patient, we can prevent cataracts nowadays. You don't have to wait for a cataract. We can do that. Now, it's a lot of work to get there from where they are right now, but the enthusiasm is just great. They want to get there.
We have to give credit where credit's due. The first time I had ever heard the word dysfunctional lens syndrome goes back to when the crystal lens was introduced. And I believe Harvey Carter, one of the first commercial sites doing crystal lens from Bausch & Lomb, was using that term. And I credit him with coming up with it. That might just be urban legend, but I'll give him credit.
Oh no, it definitely came from Harvey. Yeah. And the other part of it is that until we staged it, the stage 1, 2, and 3, it didn't really catch on very much, because it was kind of tied to just crystal lens. Very logical staging. Stage 1 of DLS is essentially presbyopia, losing your accommodation, all these words that patients don't understand.
Right.
Because it doesn't have the word lens in it. Dysfunctional lens syndrome. Oh, I have a lens in my eye. Oh yeah, you do. And it gets stiffer and harder, and your arms get shorter, and all that. And then that one's kind of a fun one to talk to them about, is that lets them know they have a lens. But stage 2, which we normally would call cortical changes or nuclear sclerosis, or terms that meant nothing to the patient.
Right.
Is stage 2 is when your night vision's not as good and you need more light to read. Those are patient terms. Oh, and they nod their head. Oh, I'm in stage 2. And then I say stage 3 is a cataract, and I have a pregnant pause. And then they go, does everybody get a cataract? Yeah, if you live long enough. Do I have to wait for a cataract? No, we have solutions today, and it opens up the conversation. Yes. And all we did was talk. It didn't have to buy a new machine or anything else to get into that discussion. So I think that's what we're doing with the practices now. We're changing them to lens-based refractive surgery, teaching everybody, their referral network, their staff and everybody, that there is a lens in the eye.
Yes, yes.
Most people don't know.
And what you're doing, if we just kind of look at the principle here, is we're saying we're going to put the patient first, right? And we've always taught clinically we put the patient first, but this is now experientially. So the language we use, right? So the way we describe things, as you said, is vitally important and actually invites and opens up the conversation. And if that happens over and over again in this practice, we know the practice is going to grow. If it happens nationally, we know the whole market grows. So the work you're doing is vital. And, you know, we think about, Dan, these things where now the patient is also a customer, right? So the words really matter. And when they're paying directly, which is the program you had at Durrie Vision that you pioneered with cataract surgery, and people said, this really can't be done. You did it very successfully. And now look at it kind of 10 years later, looking back, you know, would you do it? Would you have done it differently? Or did you like the path for Durrie Vision?
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of things happened. We started this in 2002. So it kind of, at that point in time, I was 53 years old and I was starting my own practice for the first time. And I had a big loan at the bank and no name recognition, and said, what are we going to do? Well, let's come up with something that's different. You know, I'd been in big referral networks and I'd been in Medicare and insurance. So I said, let's do no insurance, no Medicare, and no co-management. And we're just going to have our own patients come in. Then we said, well, how in the world are we going to have them come in? So we invented a better eye exam, the advanced ocular analysis, to give them their lifetime vision plan. And then, well, what are we going to do now? And then we said, well, we got to educate them. And so the process came along. It's a lot easier to do it now. And also, it's kind of gotten fine-tuned with a lot of the fellows that trained for me. If you look around at Advance or George Waring or Luke Rebinich or Joel Hunter or people, Jason Britton, they've all done it now. And it was based off of learning the words and the style and the culture. Yeah. And I think that the thing right now, it's a lot easier. Like your book has all sorts of the things that we had to invent along. So actually in our practices that we're using your book as kind of referencing to certain chapters, depending on what things they need. Mm-hmm. Because it's kind of learning that how culture and strategy go together. You know, it's not just one or the other. Your strategy has to have culture with it or they just don't sustain.
Right. You know, and we had an interview not too long ago with Matt Jensen, who's the CEO of Vance Thompson Vision, and this was the exact topic we talked about. Now, they've built a phenomenal culture at Vance Thompson Vision, but it is the strategy that really came to bear as this COVID crisis was starting to you know, kind of grow with 200 employees. So couldn't agree with you more on that. Any other insights from the book that are kind of particularly resonating with some of these first 20 practices? Anything? I mean, I know you're just reading it, so it may not even be out to them yet, but that resonate with you.
Yeah, I think that it was funny because as I was reading the book, I kept smiling because I know you so well, you know. So I kept saying, okay, I could hear you saying that and that one, and I think this evolution kind of came through the experience economy for kind of a little bit for both of us, and that's such a great book, and Blue Ocean Vision and 0 to 1 and Tiny Habits and all of these business books all give you little pieces of it, but you kind of made it so it really focused on medicine and the things that really resonated with me. One thing that's kind of funny right now is that when Durrie Vision opened back up a couple weeks ago, and we had to put in the things for social distancing. Well, guess what? We don't have a waiting room. So we didn't have to set up that because we did away with our waiting room over the years. We have a couple of couches, but we never had a crowded waiting room because we always set up. The patients came there and we met them right at the desk on the time for the appointment and impressed them with that. They only had one technician that came back, and that technician does all their history, does all their tests, and comes back and scribes. So they're only exposed to one person who's got a mask on and everything there. And in our main clinic, we saw patients every 20 minutes, and in surgery, we only saw one patient every 15 minutes. So we were social distancing before it was invented. And Jason and Tim were able to go right back almost to their full schedule just because it's the way to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And so I think that's where I see things coming out of this, the people saying, slowing down, increasing your conversion rate, communicating with patients, increasing your word of mouth referral. It's more fun. It's less tiring at the end of the day. And, I'm old enough that I used to see 60, 70 patients in a half day back in the corneal practice, and I was exhausted, and never felt like I did a good job. But slowing down and getting more focused. And what we've seen now, that our conversion rate for lens-based refractive surgery, especially even private pay, bilateral surgery, no insurance reimbursement, is really the same as our LASIK practice. It just, once you educate people, and that's the best thing for them, it's very easy to do once you learn all the steps. So
yeah,
what I've been finding with the practices that are moving to office-based surgery, they have an inflection point in their practice. And you and I know, if when you have an inflection point that's as big as that, why not take an opportunity to change a few other things? Because when you're in the same groove all the time, it sometimes is hard to make change in the practice. And in the downtime that we had, what we call the valley that we're in, the COVID valley, we did an unbelievable amount of Zoom calls with full staff and with counselors and with the surgeons, and we're able to, when could you get the whole staff together at 10 o'clock in the morning?
Right.
So we took advantage of that, and I think it's good enough that we'll continue to do huddles and things online. Zoom calls are great. I mean,
they've opened up
going to stay forever.
They've opened up new world to communicate and to teach some of these principles, so we accelerate the learning, right? And the adoption within the practice of the words, right? So it makes your platform easier. But let's go back to something you said earlier, and you talked about how you were doing social distancing before it became fashionable, right? If you think about it, and I reflect on my visit when I came as a patient and I had my advanced ocular analysis with you, and it was years ago, but I can remember distinctly arriving, and your greeter said to me, "Oh, just help yourself to a cup of coffee and we'll be going." And before I could even get the cup of coffee poured, I was being taken back to start my exam, right? I didn't have time to sit down. So you had been thinking about eliminating this waiting room, which is just an archaic term, right along with the sliding glass window that we just want, that's so counter to what patients expect in a customer experience, right? You've been doing that. And as you know, that's one of the insights in the book. Let's blow up the waiting room. Let's just get rid of it completely. I would say in some ways you were an inspiration for that insight, and I thank you.
Well, good. I like it that way. And people have asked me lately, how do you start? Well, we started with one thing: no clipboard, no wait.
Yes.
Okay. And then we said, no clipboard, no wait. How in the world are we going to do that? Okay. And then we worked with our staff, and they said, okay, here's the goal: no clipboard, no wait. Mm-hmm. How do we do it? And I didn't want to try to invent it without the staff involved. And they came up with great ideas. We tried things out. Some of them failed, some of them worked. And eventually we came up with the fact that in order for one technician to meet that patient right when they came in, and then they did their preoperative workup, they did their tests, they did their scribing, they had to get back to that front desk to that next person in exact timing. So we ended up figuring out the full timing. So we have 4 steps in our exam. We have the pre-op, we have the testing, the doctor's part, and the counseling. They all have to take the same length of time.
Yes.
So in our case, it was all 20 minutes. And so we had to move things from one part to the other one in order to make them all the same, or it'd be like an assembly line that's got a bottleneck. So it was fun for the staff, and we really haven't changed it. The flow of our practice, we moved into a new office and we kept it exactly the same because it worked. And I think practices are kind of realizing that if they do time studies and find out where their bottlenecks are and figure out how many steps do you have and make it so they're kind of invisible. And in our process, and we do it in surgery too, and we do in-office surgery and LASIK surgery the same way. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, our patient never sees another patient. It's just them and their family that they see in us. And that was another one of our goals, is to make it private to them. This is a private thing to have an eye exam. It's a private thing to have eye surgery. So we had the staff get involved in how do you do that? So each step along the way, it doesn't happen instantly, but you got to start someplace. And the thing I tell people is no clipboard, no wait. Okay, you'll still have a waiting room, you should still have one out there. So we invented this without changing our chairs or anything else. We just said no clipboard, no wait, and get your staff involved and figure out how it works for your practice.
Well, you've kept it simple, and you referenced manufacturing. And you know, our common colleague, Bernie Haffey, who teaches high performance management, HPMS, he and I are collaborating along with his partner, Lewis, to come up with a program, online interactive training, so that any practice can take this principle that you just talked about. And we want to help them eliminate the waiting room. And more importantly than eliminating the physical space is eliminating wait, because wait is a form of waste, right? That's waste. It's a waste of time, literally speaking. It's a waste of opportunity where no value is being added into the relationship between you and your patient. So Bernie and I are collaborating on that. We're now in beta testing of the modules, but we think before too long we'll be able to offer every ophthalmic practice, in fact, every medical practice in America, the ability to learn the tools. And it starts with a goal. No clipboard, no wait, right? Did I say it right?
Yep, you got it right. And words matter, remember?
And words matter. And if you start there, and then we can give people some tools on how to actually measure, how to analyze, and how to prioritize, then they're empowered. Staff as well as physicians. The whole team is empowered to make these changes with that singular common goal, better patient experience.
Yeah, no, and this is fun too. And it's not tiring at the end of the day. The other thing we do a lot with our practice is we teach them how to talk to patients, how to talk to them, to eyeball directly with them. Don't talk to the computer, talk to the patient. Make sure the patient during their exam always gets nods, and makes them so they always smile. So yes. Those are two other things you can look at to make sure every exam that you have their head nodding so they're getting it. If you're not, then you're not delivering at the point where you got it. Their eyes and their head have to show you that they're getting what you're talking about, and you need to make them smile. And they're not used to that from a doctor. So the no waiting room, the no clipboard, no wait, doctor made me feel good. Doctor wasn't just giving me the technical information about what was going on with my eyes. They were feeling like what was going on with me. I like to, in the exam, because in our lifetime vision plan, I always know their profession, and I know kind of what their goals were before I even talk to them, as we have it in our data gathering. So I always like to bring something about their profession. Whether they're somebody who reads music, or somebody that drives, or somebody that, a lot of times I have physicians I take care of. And so I don't want them to say that this is a physician when they came in. I want to know they're a gastroenterologist, or I want to know they're a neurosurgeon, so I can relate to what they're doing. Or if there's somebody that is a school teacher, relate your discussion about their vision to something that means something to them.
Correct.
You know, and why would they want better vision for their occupation? And then you get head nods.
Right. Well, Dan, what I would say about that is effectively relating understanding their story, right? And relating it to your story and what you provide, and bringing them together, right? That's where both parties are head nodding, and we see people saying, yes, I want to spend my time and I want to spend my money because I like the solution that you offer to my problem, which is I'm not seeing as well as I should be. And in fact, I'm not, because I can't see as well as I should be, I'm not living life as I could be.
Yeah, no, I think that's really, really true. And it's been fun kind of developing the words. Like one thing that we're doing with the practices right now is we tell them there's only two types of cataract surgery. These are for stage 3 DLS patients who truly have a cataract. But there's only two types of cataract surgery. There's basic cataract surgery and refractive cataract surgery. Mm-hmm. There's only two. And then they look at you, and notice I called it basic cataract surgery. I didn't call it traditional or normal or routine, because that sounds like that's what everybody should go. When you call it basic, people don't want basic anything. Then they'll say, okay, what is refractive cataract surgery? And I say, well, that's the one that can help you have better distance up close and far without glasses. And The other thing about that is that's one you got to pay for out of your pocket, because basic cataract surgery, this one's not. I'm done. And the amount of people that will say, I want that refractive cataract surgery, and I don't talk about what implant, I don't talk about what lenses, I don't talk about any of those things. I'm saying what category you're in. And the amount of people that, if I would just change the word slightly and say, do you want traditional cataract surgery or refractive cataract surgery? The conversion rate isn't nearly as high, because what I've done is I haven't given them the word differentiation.
Right.
So words and delivery are really, really important. And we found out over the years that certain words resonate on good education. You're not selling them, you're not blowing smoke, you're not doing anything else, you're just making it simple. And sometimes in a practice, somebody comes in and they've got 5 different types of cataract surgery. They've got the traditional cataract surgery, and then if you pay me a little bit more, you can get a little bit of this, and you pay me a little more, you can get a little more of this, and you pay me a little more, you can get this, and you pay me a little, and you've absolutely blown it from the standpoint that you've given them all these options. And then you go on top of that and you start technically talk about the difference between a trifocal IOL and an EDOF lens and what the,
you're making my brain hurt. You're
blowing
making
their
my
mind.
it.
You know, and that's, we have a tendency as doctors to want to talk technical. We just got to think like patients.
That's terrific. That's terrific. Dan, you are, first of all, this is a great interview. I mean, I've just so enjoyed this because I know we are two like minds, and we're both green in the Colby system, right? We're both green.
Yeah, we're both 9, so yeah.
And quick starts, right? And I'm just looking so forward to see where this goes. So let's project out kind of 4 to 5 years. Where do you see refractive cataract surgery? Where do you see ophthalmology? Your home. Where do you see elective procedures kind of 4 to 5 years from now?
Yeah, I think that we're kind of on a catch-on point, because as we've complained about for years, our industry have had a tendency to focus on the technology and on market share. Okay, Now we can see that Alcon, J&J, Zeiss, Bausch & Lomb, and all of the other players around there are still looking at, we got to grow the market. Right. Quit trying to beat each other up on my lens is better than your lens. So I see a movement there that's very good. I see that the practices are starting to see that just doing third-party reimbursed procedures is a little bit dangerous down the road. If you take just simple numbers, right now, insurance and Medicare pay about $8.5 billion a year to pay for cataract surgery right now. With our 4 million procedures and the amount we're doing, it's about $8.8 billion. We're projected, instead of doing 4 million surgery, to doing 10 million surgeries at 2025, with no more money to pay for it.
Right. The pot isn't getting bigger, is what you're saying.
The pot is not getting bigger. And now we'll have inflation and it'll be a different number, but you got to think about that as, okay, what are we really going to do with our #1 procedure, the safest, most effective procedure? We've got to figure out how to have patient shared responsibility, which is paying part of the procedure for better procedures. And this whole term that kind of shakes ophthalmologists up a little bit is, how do we prevent cataracts instead of waiting for them and watching your vision deteriorate for 25 years so that they then qualify for surgery? Yes. We need to educate patients, and I can tell you, patients will sign up to pay for their own better vision once you educate them well.
Oh, that's right.
So I think the upside is tremendous.
Well, I reflect on conversations from some of your, I'll say, colleagues in the elder statesman category, right? Trevor Woodhams, how he would talk about patients around these issues. Eric Donenfeld said, the 2 life stages is presbyopia and cataract, right? I'm getting old and I'm feeling old, and no one wants to be told that they're old, right? So all of this really supports this notion about this specialty, how special the ophthalmology specialty is in terms of the life enablement that we give through the technology. But something you said about technology, it is really the kind of the irony of the whole thing, is that the technology innovation has been so incredible, but if technology were the answer to growing the market, we would have known by now, right? It's 25 years since I had PRK up in Canada before, just before it got approved in the US. And equipment is so much better than it was then, right? The lenses are so much better than they were even 5 to 10 years ago. If technology were the answer, these companies in this market would be much bigger. So I agree with your assessment, Dan, that it is now time to turn to probably the single biggest opportunity, which is, can we shift? Can we meaningfully have a meaningful breakthrough in patient experience? Because the words matter, and it is the small things that matter. The words, what we say, the head nods, all these little things that doctors never really thought about, now they can think about. And we have this reset button, right? We can press that was that commercial, the easy button. Yeah. We can press that button.
Easy button.
I'm not saying it's easy, but we can press that button. And COVID was a crisis that also gave us an opportunity to do this. So any parting words before we conclude?
No, just I think from your standpoint, keep up the good work, and working with Bernie is just a great idea, and working with the practices. And I think you know, a lot of people were a little bit doom and gloom when the COVID crisis first started. Oh no, we're going to shut down, and would private pay ever be there afterwards? We're not seeing that in Europe right now as it's coming back. Actually, the private pay LASIK market and private pay lens surgery is actually coming back faster than the cataract market in Hong Kong and China. And so I think there's still a pent-up demand. And I think that we can really look at that growth. I'd like to have people kind of focus on an area that they don't have to change too much. And that's where I'm finding out that cataract surgeons moving over into lens-based refractive surgery are really comfortable with that because they already know how to do all the technology. Mm-hmm. It's harder to take a cataract surgeon and move them to LASIK surgery.
Right.
That's a big move for them. It's expensive and everything else. But with this move to office-based surgery, they're already doing it in their office. So there's an experience of that. They get fine-tuned on comfortable doing that. It's safe and effective. Matter of fact, we just reported a couple of weeks ago the data on our first 5,000 patients done with in the IOR family. And we just were reporting the safety rates. And we compared it to the Kaiser paper that came out in 2015. And our results are good or are as good or better than that paper, even, and it'll just keep getting better because these are great surgeons that are moving into an environment with best equipment. And we only doing patients that are appropriate for in-office surgery. We're not Correct. Doing somebody that should be done under general anesthesia with comorbidities. So it's a younger, more mobile group, but they're getting the wow experience that we saw with LASIK. That they weren't seeing as much when it was done at the hospital, especially.
And from a cost standpoint, I don't mean cost of the patient, I mean cost of doing this. My analysis at our firm has been very simple. It's gone back down by a factor of 10 and a factor of 10 again. And what I mean by that is cataract surgery used to be done in a hospital. $20 million to build the hospital or the suite, okay? Then it went to an ASC. $2 million to build the ASC, right? Then it has gone now to the office, $200,000. So we have brought down the cost for the facility and the equipment by a factor of 100, right? 1/100th of what it used to cost to be able to do office-based, lens-based refractive surgery, which is phenomenal. And Dan, I wish you and the IOR team the best of success. I'm going to be following it closely, as you know. So grateful that you all are incorporating the book as part of the required reading for the new practices doing this.
Thank you for writing it. We, you know, it's I like to give talks and I like to teach people how to talk to other patients, but I hate writing books. So you took that away from me. I can just quote yours.
It was indeed a labor of love over the last few years. And with that, I just wish you all the best. And for everyone watching, thank you for spending time with us today. This is Dan Durrie. I'm Shareef Mahdavi for Pep Talk. And as always, be safe, wash your hands, love your pets. Until next time, all the best.